Hello all, and welcome to Explained with Dylan. Last week I talked about electric cars, and why I think they are almost a complete scam. Everything you're being sold on with electric cars, most of it is completely a lie. But I don't need to talk about that again, even though I could just repeat the exact same video as last week, and I'd be happy. You guys probably wouldn't. So this week I'm going to talk about my favorite alternative to electric cars. That would be hydrogen cars. I've mentioned hydrogen and how much I like it before, plenty of times on this channel, especially in my video, Canada's deal with Germany to export hydrogen to Europe by 2028. I want to say it's 2028, it might be 2025. I'm just reciting this from memory. I haven't actually looked at the title of the video since I released it. By the way, perfectly length title, if you ask me. I mean, that title is not an inch too long for a YouTube video. And yet it's still got over 80 views, so I don't know. Anyways, this is off topic. I like hydrogen. In all cases, I quite like hydrogen. Hydrogen is a very useful element, and I see it as the future, but especially the future of cars. Now, it's important to note ahead of time that hydrogen can come from two main sources. Either it can come from water, which is obviously a pretty clean source. You just have to extract the oxygen from the hydrogen with the water, which sounds like a very complicated process. And while it is, it's not that hard given how much technology can do nowadays. Now, the other process is extracting hydrogen from natural gas. And that process is easier and quite a bit cheaper. And it's already set up. People already do it. But there's one slight issue with that. That also pollutes. It's the exact same thing as gasoline cars and electric cars. It pollutes as well because you're releasing natural gas into the air while extracting the hydrogen from it. So, just whenever I'm talking in this video, I am referring to the environmentally friendly version coming from water as opposed to the natural gas version, which is no better for the environment. First of all, how do hydrogen cars work? Well, there's two concepts for how hydrogen cars could work. There's two different ways, and I will simplify all of this for you. One of them is just exactly the same way as gasoline cars work. You put fuel of hydrogen into the car, and then the car burns it, and it powers the car. Now, it's pretty simple because it doesn't pollute. Instead, what is emitted is just water. It's just a bit of mist emitted from using hydrogen like that. So, it's pretty simple. Now, the other way that hydrogen cars could work, and this one's a bit more complicated, is where hydrogen goes into the car and then proceeds to get transferred and burned to become electricity, which goes and powers four individual motors, which then run the wheels. So that's a bit more like an electric car works. But instead of just going straight with the source, putting electricity into the car, then you put hydrogen into the car, which can be environmentally friendly compared to electric cars. Unless, of course, it's coming from natural gas. Now, one of the biggest advantages to hydrogen cars is that it is, coming from water, the most environmentally friendly option by a significant amount. As I mentioned last time, while some electricity isn't good for the environment, there are some sources that are just fine. But the materials in the batteries are terrible for the environment. So this fixes that problem. Obviously, there's still small batteries in hydrogen cars, but they work more like a gas-powered car's battery instead of an electric car battery. So it is still quite a bit better for the environment. Another massive advantage to hydrogen cars is that it's really quick and easy. You hook up some hydrogen to the car, it's just like filling up your tank with gas. It's just as easy as that. And it's very similar. They run very similar to how gas-powered cars run. So it doesn't feel like you're making much of a change. The only thing that's changing is what you fill up your car with. Now, there are some disadvantages to hydrogen cars. Starting with what's mentioned earlier, natural gas is one source of hydrogen that is cheaper. And plenty of companies will want to take the better route and just source it from water, which is all well and good. The problem is some companies always want to take the cheaper shortcut. So they might go and start sourcing it from natural gas, which then in hand, as I mentioned earlier, is just as bad as gas cars or electric cars. It makes no difference. Another disadvantage is that hydrogen is extremely explosive. And something extremely explosive is not usually something you want to have in your car. Now, however, the companies trying to create hydrogen cars right now, including Toyota, have worked on that quite a bit, so it should be a perfectly safe process. But some people are still nervous when they hear the word hydrogen, especially when you associate it with the Hindenburg, which didn't exactly end well. But overall, the biggest problem with hydrogen cars right now is the lack of infrastructure. If I were to buy a hydrogen car, I have nowhere to fill it up, and I can't properly source it myself. It's not like an electric car, where even when electric cars were just starting out, even if you had nowhere to charge your electric car, even if you live in the middle of nowhere, I'm sure your house has power, in which case you can still charge your electric car. But in hydrogen's case, there is no hydrogen you can easily get from your house. You can't get it yourself. You need to go to a station. It's like gasoline. But gasoline is easily sourced. You can go get a tank of gasoline anywhere. There's hundreds of gas stations. There's way more than hundreds of gas stations. I don't know why I picked hundreds. There are endless gas stations, so you will be just fine. If you're on a long drive, let's say you're going to Vancouver, you can always fill up with gas. So nowadays, plenty of bigger cities do have hydrogen stations, but it's still lacking in the smaller communities. And so people won't go on a long drive with their hydrogen car yet. Which is their biggest advantage when you look at it compared to electric cars, is that you can go on a long drive with it because unlike electric cars, you won't have to stop for 40 minutes to wait for it to charge. You'll have to wait maybe 5. But that infrastructure still needs to come in. The problem is, it won't come in until more people start buying hydrogen cars and proving that there is a market for it. The problem is, more people won't start buying hydrogen cars unless there's more infrastructure. The problem, you get where I'm going with this, don't you? So, it's kind of just a big circle. But the biggest thing that I think should happen is that some car companies should honestly just make a deal with one of the major gas stations that they will end up sourcing hydrogen. Maybe just one pump at a station for the start, and just have a bit of hydrogen there so everyone can fill up. Let's say Shell, for example. Big gas station, you can find a Shell everywhere. If they had just one hydrogen pump per station, then you could easily fill up your car. In which case, that would help quite a bit, and then I'm sure the market would grow exponentially. But that still has to happen. Someone has to go and make a deal so that hydrogen can be sourced. Now, hydrogen cars are a long ways out because of some of these issues. But I think where they are coming in quickly is going to be in the transport industry. You see, I mentioned how you have to stop for 40 minutes to fill up your electric car. You don't fill it up, you charge your electric car. And that is a problem, obviously, for travelers. But if you're just going around town, you're fine. The biggest thing is in the transport industry. For example, with a semi-truck, where you cannot afford to stop for 40 minutes. So, hydrogen works best there. Besides, batteries are extremely heavy to have and make it a lot harder on those trucks. But hydrogen, just like gas, it would work great. Another thing that, again, long ways out, but I could see this happening, is a hydrogen plane. You see, electric planes, as much as people might want them to happen, they're never going to happen because the batteries are way too heavy. But you know what could happen is a hydrogen plane, because of the fact that it's just like filling it up with gasoline. The problem is, I mentioned this earlier as well, people might be slightly concerned about hydrogen, especially in a plane, because last time we put hydrogen in a floating object, the Hindenburg, it did not exactly turn out very well. So there would need to be a lot of testing done ahead of time, a lot of proof to the public that it's okay. But I think this could happen someday. But we'll have to see. For now, we are stuck with gasoline cars because there isn't a better alternative yet. But it will come soon. For now, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys again soon.